South Korea, a beautiful country with over 50 million people. But what does it have to offer your business? Annyeonghaseyo, or good afternoon, business executives. We are here today to determine whether it's proper for you to do business in South Korea and whether it will benefit your company. We are a group of international business consultants, and we are specialized in South Korea. My name is Joanna Carrizales, and today I will be talking to you about culture. My colleague Andre Olive will be talking to you about politics and their relations. Lindsay Villanueva will be talking to you about hotspots in South Korea. Michael Portier will be talking to you about technology. CL Ritter-Finch will be talking to you about the economy. Like I said before, my name is Joanna Carrizales, and I will be talking to you about culture. I am an international business consultant, and I've lived in South Korea for approximately 5 years. Three things that I will be talking to you is the rivalry between Japanese and Koreans. I will be talking to you about business etiquette and class, and I will also be talking to you about the idea of looking good in South Korea along with plastic surgery and cosmetics. So the rivalry between the Japanese and the Koreans. So it first began in World War II, and this initially started with the Japanese trying to assimilate Koreans into their Japanese society. They actually banned the Korean language in schools, and they wanted for it to be completely Japanese. And they also enslaved Korean women and used them as sex slaves for their Japanese soldiers. So this, of course, this history has been taught in South Korea, and there has been very much great racism towards the Japanese, and this history is also taught to their Korean youth so that they really have a great sense of national pride and that they were able to overcome this invasion from the Japanese. So with business practices, according to KoreanEtiquette.com, there's a very great power to creating a relationship between your business partner first before you actually make a contract or actually have an official signed paperwork. It's very important to first nurture the relationship and go out to dinner, drink, and going to bars. But when you go to these settings, and it's very important to not talk about business, there will be a time when you will have an official business meeting to talk about what will be going on in business later. It's also very important to give a gift. This will also later in the future allow you to ask for favors, and it will, like I said before, will build a relationship and allow you to have better honesty, and they will also be more confident that you are a good business partner to have. It's also very important that you are very punctual in these meetings. If you plan on being late, it's important that you call at least an hour before so that they know that you will not be coming. But it's also important to note that business executives don't have to do this, and they usually sometimes have to not come to the meeting, and they tend to cancel their meetings very last minute because they have a lot of important things to do. But you can't take it personally. But if you're coming into this meeting as a new associate, then you have to plan ahead and be at least 10 minutes early to the meeting, or then you're considered late, and it's very disrespectful and rude. It's also very important to know how to handle business cards. In South Korea, it's essential for you to take a business card with both hands, like I demonstrated here in the picture. It's an extension of somebody's person, and if you have the card and just put it in your pocket or lay it right away, it's considered very rude and very disrespectful to that new person you just met or that potential business partner in the future. Like I said, it's a sign of respect, so if you're handed a business card, be sure to also bow down. And it's important to note that business decisions may take a long time since it goes by hierarchy in South Korea. So when something is approved, it goes on to the next person. So it's very important to be patient when doing business. Now I'll be talking to you about the idea of looking good. So in South Korea, there's also a rise in plastic surgery. Approximately, there's 1 out of 5 women in South Korea have undergone the knife and have done plastic surgery, whether it's a double eyelid, a rhinoplasty, laser hair removal, and that's according to ABC World News. And BBC World News states that 75 million people travel to South Korea for surgery. It's actually way cheaper than here in the United States. For example, rhinoplasty here will cost you approximately $8,000, while in South Korea it will cost you around $2,000, $4,000. But they also have a very good customer service in South Korea, so you are in good hands even though you're paying a cheaper price. And it's also very common for people here in the Asian people here in the United States to travel to South Korea because they feel that they have a more of expertise in their face and racially. There's also an increase in cosmetics and care for men. Men don't feel threatened by their masculinity if they're using foundation, if they're using eyeliner, if they, depending on the creams they put on their face. So according to a London-based market research firm, Euromonitor International, there's an increase of male skincare products of approximately 10% last year. And according to the report by Amore Pacific Ling-Jong-Sik, which is a cosmetics company in South Korea, it estimates that 20% of young men are currently using foundation. And what's actually very popular right now is BB cream. So a lot of, as you can tell by the picture, it's very common for males to wear foundation and now a little bit of eyeshadow too. And like I said before, this actually boosts their self-esteem, and it's also very common in business practices to see someone to see a business partner or business associate to have makeup on. It's not threatening, and it doesn't reduce your masculinity in South Korea, and it still keeps you very up to date with the trends. So today I talked to you about the rivalry between the Japanese and the Koreans, and I also talked to you about business practices and business etiquette. I also talked to you about the idea of looking good in South Korea, and now I will hand it over to Andrea Uribe, who will talk to you a little bit about the politics and relations.
As she stated before, I'm Andrea Uribe. I am a political science researcher specializing in Asian countries. And I'm going to talk to you today about the structure of South Korea, its relations with other countries, as well as foreign investment restrictions, regulations, and requirements. Also, my personal precautions to take when doing business. All right, so it's the Republic of Korea. It was democratized in 1987 officially. It had, before that, embraced Western democracy, but it hadn't officially held its first direct and fair presidential election until 1987, which is the official date of democratization for them. They're a multi-party democracy. They have, just like the U.S., 3 branches of government: judicial, legislative, and executive, all protected under the Constitution of the Republic of Korea. All right, now I'm going to talk about foreign relations that they have. With Japan, as Joanna had stated, it's very rocky because of their occupation in South Korea. There's a lot of stigmas attached to doing business anywhere around or near with Japanese. So if you're already affiliated with Japanese, you might not want to be so quick to go to South Korea. With North Korea, of course, there's always going to be issues that would come along with that. As much as they want to do work with them or do establish trade or whatever they want to do with them, when they have people like the U.S. and the United Nations on their side, it's hard for us to agree on something as far as doing business with North Korea. And U.S. and others, according to the U.S. Department of State, South Korea has diplomatic relations with 170 countries. In 1991, it joined the United Nations, and more recently, it established free trade with the United States. All right, now here's the most harsh restrictions they have on foreign investment. That would be nuclear fuel processing, electricity generation, meat wholesale, food crop cultivation, telecommunications, publications, and passenger transportation. If you might have read recently, Uber is in really hot water with South Korea because it's public transportation, and that's one of the hardest regulations. And they're saying that they're kind of a radical company, that they don't follow the regulations, which Uber has gotten in trouble for with many other states or countries that they've operated in. But recently, they're outlawing it completely in South Korea. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about foreign investment laws. All foreign investments must be reported under the Foreign Investment Promotion Act or the Foreign Exchange Transaction Act. This is according to UK Practical Law website. To apply for these direct investments, you need to acquire at least 10% of a voting share of a Korean company or establish a business relationship with a different Korean company. And the second thing you must do is invest 100 million Korean won, which is equivalent to about 90,000 US dollars. All right, now I'm going to give you a little bit of precautions. Of course, the rise of China is always going to be something that we need to watch out for with their political and military, just because they're so big and they take so much of the Asian economy that their growth affects everyone in the area, especially South Korea is included, of course. Dealing with North Korea, of course, they're trying to establish peaceful relations, but of course there's so many complications to it as far as them being a part of the United Nations, and it's a bigger situation to deal with. And one of the biggest ones is lower wage countries in the surrounding areas. South Korea is one of the largest economies, as Gail talked about later in the area. It's booming and its growth rate is enormous, but with that comes with higher wages required, and it's getting hard to compete with countries like Taiwan and different places that require very, very minimal wages. So the flexibility is going to be 100% necessary for South Korea if you want to do business there. So yeah, I went over basically to wrap up the foreign investment, political structure, their relationships with other countries. And now I'm going to hand it off to Lindsay to tell you a little bit about hotspots in South Korea.
Hello everyone, so as Andre said, my name is Lindsay Villanova, and I am a business major focusing on Asian countries. And today I will be talking to you about business hotspots in South Korea, specifically the cities of Incheon, Seoul, and Songdo. So first of all, Incheon, according to businesskorea.com, Incheon accounts for about 5% of the national economy of Korea, specifically 4.8% of the gross regional domestic product. In the recent years, Incheon has showed improved results in terms of employment and their exports alike, and they have a lot of growth in industries such as biotechnology, and they have new and renewable energy source productions that they're working on. And major industries that you see that are thriving are those such as automobile and petroleum product manufacturing that have led the growth in their economy. The major Chamber of Commerce and Industry also strives hard to attract a lot of investors, and they strive to have a very business-friendly environment. And also another prime thing to notice about Incheon is that's where Incheon International Airport is located, and that airport was named the world's best airport for about 9 years by Airports Council International, and they have really fast service. It's one of the fastest in the world, and they even have their own spa, their skating rink, and private rooms that you can even stay in. So a lot of people, it's very busy all the time, and many people travel to and from a lot of the Asian countries. Next is Seoul. Seoul is a prime spot simply because it is the capital city of the Republic of Korea. Seoul is, according to World Design Capital, it's a focal point because it's located between China and Japan, which are the two largest country markets in Asia. They have a very strong competitiveness in their high-tech IT industry and knowledge industries, which has helped them redefine their image in terms of their design capabilities. And they have a lot of major brands that we see here, a lot of the major brands such as LG, Samsung, Hyundai, and specifically, notably Samsung headquarters, which is in one of their main districts, Gangnam. Here's where many of the high-tech devices that Seoul will embrace in the next few years are being developed. Like all the technologies and all the new products that you'll see in the next few years are going to come from Samsung, which is headquartered in Seoul. And also, if any of you know about, for example, K-pop and their group, they also come from Seoul, and they're based off of here, and they're also making a lot of money in the technology industry. And lastly, a very important agreement to note is the U.S.-Korea Free Trade Agreement, or KORUS, which was established or implemented March 15th of 2012, which provides U.S. companies with unprecedented opportunities for increased bilateral trade and investment through tariff eliminations and a greater market access across a wide range of industries. And moving on to one of the major cities, the main city that South Korea has been working on recently is Songdo. They're calling this, according to Songdo IBD, they are the world, people refer to this city as the smartest city in the world because it was designed to be an international business district. And since the city was built from scratch, it's given developers the opportunity to invest heavily in technologies that you may not see in other conventional cities. And they have a lot of new technologies that you really don't see, and they're really getting towards sustainability. And their companies relocating to this district are going to really benefit from this district because they'll have access to tax reductions, estate support and subsidies, and no property tax will be levied for 10 years, and followed by 3 years where businesses need to only pay 50% of the taxes due. So it's a really great opportunity for businesses who are just starting off and for young people who want to, just move there and start businesses because not many people really know about it yet. It's fairly new and not a lot of international business communities there, such as like Seoul that's very crowded and where a lot of people already have established businesses. So it's really great if you really want to start a new business there. Also, their Songdo's International Business Square is very important. It's their official commercial hub, and it has quickly become a destination for multinational corporations. Their location is very crucial. It's at the core of the business district, and it is 4.5 million square meters of business space that is available to anyone who wants to start a business there. They have become the building, the International Business Square, the building has become one of the most sought after office facilities in the region because of its location and because of its design. It has very flexible renting opportunities, and it focuses on job creation, incentives for international firms, and it's just a great opportunity to move there. And there's a lot of opportunity for new businesses. And Songdo really just wants to make this city a business district, and they want to attract however many people like worldwide. So it'd be a great opportunity to move here because it would just help them and sustain their reputation for being a very growing economy that they have been in the past years. So in conclusion, I talked to you all about business hotspots in South Korea, specifically cities such as Incheon, Seoul, and Songdo, and why it would be a very great idea to move to any of these cities in order to start your business. And now we'll pass it on to Michael, who will talk about the technology of South Korea.
Hello, I'm Michael. I'm a research and development specialist, and I'm here to talk to you all about some of the growing technological fields in South Korea, such as robotics, aerospace research, and biotechnology. So I'll go ahead and start off with my first point, robotics. Oh, that's not. So South Korea is leading development on androids, or what they call hubos, which is just any humanoid robot. According to an article on LifeScience.com that featured one of these called the Eve R1, it's a robot that is capable of matching human expression and communication. It's got a vocabulary of 400 words. It's got a bunch of facial sensors to detect your facial expression, and it's also got motors within the face so it can match your expression. And it's capable of holding small, simple verbal exchanges with people. And they plan to put them into department stores or just large areas as information services. So you can just talk to, a robot to get information instead of talking to a person. And that's one of the accomplishments in the field of robotics. Moving on to the next point. Aerospace research is very, very big and growing and backed by the government in South Korea, but it's all privately owned. In early 2000, according to defense talks, the big partnerships between Russia and South Korea were made in hopes of making advancements in aerospace research and actual rockets and satellites to launch. And they finally saw some fruition of these goals. They recently launched the Naro-1, which is a carrier rocket, and it put the very first successful Korean satellite into space. And they have a space center south of Seoul, which Lindsay mentioned is a major city, and that's where they house the space center. But the actual place of launching the rockets is south of Seoul, outside of the city. They have future plans to launch more rockets, since this was their very first successful one, and they hope to have their own satellite and aeros space centers. That's the ultimate plan, according to NASA spaceflight.com. Finally, moving on to the final technology that I'll be talking to you about is biotechnology. So South Korea, as mentioned by Joanna, all those cosmetics and stuff, they're very big on biotechnology, anything that's in the medical field. And one of their most prided accomplishments is stem cell infrastructure. According to Biospectrum Asia, they hold a stem cell workshop yearly where they just have a bunch of scientists come and talk about the ethics, the development, and just the research of stem cell research and what it produces. And they've actually gone commercial with some of the technologies that stem cell research has produced, mainly pharmaceutical drugs. According to a quote, Pharmacell is commercializing a heart-to-cellogram for acute myocardial infarction. Donga Pharma has developed Cartisem for knee cartilage injury, and Anterogen has developed Copistem for Crohn's disease. So they're extremely progressive in the field of stem cell research, whereas in America we kind of put a lot of regulation on it during the Bush era. But they aren't, so they're really, really big into biotechnology in general, and that's some of the commercial accomplishments that have been made. To conclude, I talked to you about the growing technological fields in South Korea, such as robotics and some of the androids they produced. I talked to you about aerospace research and the accomplishments, launching their first satellite into orbit. And I talked to you about biotechnology and some of the commercial success of the stem cell research. And I will now open the floor to CL, who will tell you about the economy.
Alright, so as Michael obviously mentioned, my name is Ciel Werder French, and I'm an economist focused in Southeast Asian markets. So we're going to start off by talking about the history of South Korea's economy in more recent years. So during the Korean War, after the Korean War, I should say, after so much money had been devoted to the Korean War and much of the many things were destroyed for Korea during the Korean War, obviously, with the conflicts. their economy completely tanked and they were not doing very well. This is exacerbated by the fact that South Korea does not have very many natural resources to go off of. They mostly have to go off exports and international trade. So by 1960, their GDP was about $79 US, which is very, very small, obviously. And they slowly started growing and growing, and this is mostly thanks to their industrial sector, which is most of what they focus on. However, in 1989, their economy started tanking again, as it did in a lot of parts of the world. But they kept growing again until the Asian financial crisis of 1997, which is pretty much what it sounds like. A lot of Asian countries in that area were very interconnected through trade, tanked, and South Korea was not doing well. But they fixed the problem. A lot of this is thanks to Kim Dae-jung, who was the president of Korea in the early 2000s and the last few years of the 1990s. And he focused on a lot of new regulations and new measures put forth to increase South Korea's economy so they wouldn't be not doing so well. He wanted the country to be doing better. And ever since then, they have been steadily growing more and more, and even during the global recession of the 2007-2008 time, and of course America was a big player in that, they still were okay. It dipped them down a little bit, but they were able to keep moving forward, and it didn't affect them nearly as much as a lot of countries in the world. So now, they're doing quite well. They're the 15th largest economy in the world, with a GDP of around $1.7 trillion US. All this information is from the CIA World Factbook, by the way. And their unemployment rate was only 3%, as opposed to in America, which our employment rate is almost 6%. So in terms of that, you can see that they're actually doing a little bit better than us. And the World Bank Group rates them as number 7 out of the whole world, one being the best, in their Ease of Business Index, which focuses on regulations by countries to decide which country is easiest to do business with. And so South Korea is definitely very high up there in how easy it is to do business with them. So a little bit of information about their economy and the industries that are very important to them. 2.6% of their economy is focused on agriculture, which is quite small compared to the next two, which are almost 40% for industrial services, or industry in general, I should say, and then 58% for services, which could be anything from telecommunication services to personal services. It really depends. Some of that is international, some of it is just within the country. All this information is from the Trading Economics website. And they have a 30% market share in the global shipbuilding industry. They used to have the highest in the world, but China in more recent years has taken that spot from them with 40 or 45, something around there percent. And the OISA is a company or organization that focuses on the automobile industry, and they say that the South Korean auto market is the 5th largest in the world. And the tech industry is one more industry that is very important in South Korea, as Michael already obviously mentioned, so I won't go into too much detail about it, but it is one of the largest industries for South Korea. So for businesses that are focused in the tech industry, this is very important to note, because a lot of the education and skills that are needed to do those sorts of tasks are already there in Korea. The infrastructure for that is already set in place. So just to conclude what I talked about today, I talked about the history of the South Korean economy within the past 50, 60 years, the GDP and general standing of the company as a whole, and then also some of the top industries that are important in South Korea. And to conclude the whole presentation, Joanna talks about the culture by discussing the We're going to talk about the culture by discussing the importance of looks and also the business culture. Andre talked about the political structure by discussing laws, regulations, and Michael talked about the technology industry by discussing some of the important industry sectors within the technology industry. Lindsay talked about business hotspots by discussing 3 of the biggest cities that could be important for business ventures. And I talked about the economy by talking about the Korea's standing with the rest of the world and their industry standings within it. And our recommendation is that you should do business in South Korea, because they have a good infrastructure set in place for the technology industry. They have a good political climate because of the free trade agreement with America, and they have the existing technology industry that would allow businesses to employ South Koreans without much difficulty in finding the people they need. So thank you. Are there any